He knows all of the things about the statistics that govern law enforcement and the things that are going on in our country. And then we have Adam Rosari, Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of Agency Partner Interactive, who'll be joining us to talk about the marketing of the Trump mugshot. So I know we discussed this
on in our country.
and then we have Adam Rosari, a little bit about the discussion that we had. And I have to tell you, one of the most interesting things about it is that mugshots are normally like you this is to let the public know this person who may not be known to you has been arrested for this. I discussed a little bit about how idiotic it was to do a mugshot of Trump because he is absolutely well known, one of the most photographed individuals in the world, but and how we respect the office of the presidency, and that's why so many of the other prosecutors just didn't bother with a mugshot. But there's also this issue of President Trump and the fact that they thought the mugshot would be of benefit to them. And so it has backfired on them spectacularly because it's only raising money for him. In fact, the latest email that he sent out from his campaign shows that they actually had $20 million pour in after the mugshot. So it's not working for him. And and when I say it's not working for him, I'm talking about Biden. All of this is being done to benefit Biden, and it's not helping him. So yeah, there's that. Now, tonight, as we open the show, I want to talk about the lockdowns. And yes, they are a thing and they are coming. In fact, the lockdowns will now be pretty much a continuing source of contention going across every sphere of your life. It will begin starting now. And here's why that's important. You might not be thinking about the lockdowns. In fact, school just started. You're probably thinking about getting your kids where they need to be. You're thinking about doing the things that are important to you for this evening, for tomorrow, for next week. You're thinking about all the different things as a parent, as a spouse, as maybe an aunt and uncle, as an employee, as an employer, whatever your roles are. You're thinking about the things that you have to do to get to your next, cross it off the list, set that milestone, pass it, go on. Well, they're thinking about how they can get a mask back on your face and new shots in your arms. I actually read an article today about President Biden. He has a request in the latest funding request for Ukraine. He's also asking for a significant amount of money to fund new vaccines that he says will actually work. They're now admitting that, that this current slate of vaccines doesn't prevent transmission. So he says he wants to get those. And he says they will come with the component of everyone being required to take them. So just in case you're wondering, how in the world, what in the world, why in the world would I take another, hastily cobbled together shot? Well, they're not really worried about why you would do it. What they're going to do is they're going to mandate it because they don't like the fact that they didn't catch everybody this go round. So NPR is the one that is actually reporting on this at this point, where I saw the story in here and I thought to myself, I'm actually incredulous because I can't believe they would actually think that more people would comply with this next round of COVID shots than the last round. Like, what are they going to say? That this round has like magic fairy dust in it? Are they going to, mix some glitter in with it so people will want to take it so they can glow from the inside out? I don't know what makes them think we're going to go for it, but here it is. NPR was broadcasting this morning about the rise in COVID cases and how alarming it is. And they were talking about how they have to stop the spread. And that's why masks are coming back to the classrooms. And they're just desperate. They're like, oh my gosh, losing it. And so they have to stop the spread to reduce the strain on hospitals and schools. And so everybody's got to mask up. And that's actually not just on NPR, it's everywhere. But I'm using NPR as our example here because, this is National Public Radio. It's radio paid for by you and me. And the last thing it should be is propaganda. They should be so stinking careful to make sure that they adhere to the rules of journalism, the normal modus operandi of what goes on in a journalism apparatus, how things are investigated, how they are presented, to make sure that they are accurate and detailed and nonpartisan, because taxpayers are funding their work. But instead, they take the opposite tack. They're literally overjoyed and spreading panic. And the worst part about this is we just learned through the last pandemic that, unlike, I would say, most of the people listening to this show, if you're watching the live stream on YouTube, anybody who is involved in this, kind of mid center, right-sided, independent thought, thinking for yourself, leaning for the truth, that there's nothing to be afraid of. It doesn't matter what the pandemic is. There's no reason to force everyone to live in the same way, because our country is so varied. Our weather patterns, everything, even the way down to the way we speak and dress, which is irrelevant to a pandemic. But the point is, some places, some heavily populated places, will necessarily need to be differently managed than places that are, fewer person per square foot population wise. And we knew that before the pandemic. We relearned it again during the pandemic. And now it looks like they are planning on unlearning that and maybe taking it from a different tack, because it didn't work last time. So let's see how we can make it work this time. People died unnecessarily because of mismanagement, not because of the pandemic or the COVID-19 deadliness. It's all a pack of lies. So New York Times is drumming up a little bit of disease panic. Now, remember, they were part and parcel to it. They were heavily into it during the first pandemic. February 28th of 2020, they threw out 100 years of editorial policy on infectious disease and counseled their readers to be in a full-blown panic. They paved the way for what came 2 weeks later, the wreckage of the COVID lockdowns, the absolute carnage of what was an abject failure and a mistake, unless we consider the fact they put that out there and we still haven't recovered. We were told 2 weeks to slow the spread. That lasted for 2 years. We have not recovered. America's children have not caught up with the learning loss that they experienced. And more than that, the fearfulness is still so prevalent. 104 degrees out one of the days last week. So the temperature was like 99, but the effective temperature was well over 100. It was like 104, 105 degrees. And me and a couple of friends were eating lunch, and we watched a lady literally trip over her own flip-flops and go flying across the floor at the restaurant where we were. Everyone stopped to look to see if they needed to help or call 911. And she stood up and said, "Stop looking at me. Everyone stop looking. I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. Go back to your meals. Go back to your meals." And we kind of commented on how ungracious she was, because it would have been utterly barbaric for someone to fall that loud and that hard and slide that far across the floor and everybody in the room not stop and take a look. If we had all just gone on, sipping our coffee and eating our lunch without even taking a glance, that's barbarism. So everybody's stopping. They were stopping out of concern. What she did was dismiss that. And then, with a mask in her hand, a little blue surgical mask, she went outside into that 105-degree heat and strapped that thing on her ears as tight as she could and started walking. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking the reason she felt so faint after getting up from eating her meal is that she is oxygen deprived, because she's been wearing a mask outside in 100-degree temps. And that's where we are right now. Without any mandates, I can't go out ever here in the Midwest. It's hardly a radicalized part of the country without seeing someone masked up outside. And most often, it's not somebody elderly. It is a youngish looking mom, 30s, with a 4-year-old with them. And they have a mask on, and so does the child. And it's 100, it's 89, it's 90, it's 95. It's hot, right? It's the devil's front porch out here in Missouri right now. That's what it is. It was 84 today. And I felt really blessed for it to be 84, because we have gotten so used to those 100 degrees. I was like, this is pretty good. And I would have been complaining before. So, everything's relative. So the Democrats and the control freaks have worked very hard to make sure that we feel that lockdowns are the norm, that it is normal to be locked down. And to resist that is to want to kill people. And we still have pretty much the same people in charge as those who were in charge at the local level who did this last time. So if you think they're not thinking of doing it again, you haven't been paying attention to human nature and history is not one of your strong suits. They're going to try to repeat this, especially with an election coming up that will be much more difficult to kind of, we need mail-in ballots. We need, 90 days of voting. A lot of that has been taken care of by state legislatures. And in the areas where it's still the rule, these are Democrat strongholds anyway. So you had this latest Times headline says, not over yet, late summer COVID wave brings warning of more to come. And I'm just going to tell you, this is where we have to have backbone. This is where we have to stand up and say, no. Not no thank you or let me think about that. No. The kind of angry no that you give when someone has asked you a few times and you've already said no, and now you're getting to the end of your rope. No mask mandates, no lockdowns, no distancing, no school closures, no church closures, no gym closures, no preferred businesses, no, double standards. This business over here can be open, but that business over there needs to be closed. And no more edicts from these petty dictators at the local level telling us what we can and can't do with our own lives, with our own bodies, with our own businesses, and with our own kids. So we have Congresswoman Harshbarger right after these important messages. Stay right there. We'll be back. All right, you will not be able to hear the interview with Congresswoman Harshbarger, so I'm going to disconnect. But thank you for joining. Thank you for being with us tonight. And have a wonderful evening. Find us at SiriusXM.